Good morning and welcome to Deadline Press Agency's roundup of today's top stories in the Scottish press. I'm Oliver Faramond.
And I'm Sean Millen.
On the front page of today's Daily Record, two of the worst paedophiles ever have been jailed for life at the Edinburgh High Court.
Yes, Neil Strachan and James Rennie, regarded as the ringleaders of these vile perverts, were sent down by a judge.
It's a groundbreaking case. A new charge, the conspiracy charge, was implemented, and the Record had devoted 5 pages, 2 of which are spreads, to this story.
Obviously, the story is covered in some depth elsewhere as well. However, what's emerged is Scottish police for the first time are being proactive now. They've set up a new unit to take the fight to these kind of people who stalk children online, as opposed to being reactive, as was the case when these guys were caught by chance.
And one of the lines the Record's got is an exclusive words from the Reliance Guards that were in court, one of whom was in the army for 20 years and described the sickening images as worse than the horrors of war.
It's a horrific case and it will chill everyone to the bone, I'm sure. The Scottish Sun also covers this story in depth, but they splash with something altogether different. It's a story about a bride who's wed a mate for the 8th time.
Sandra McNabb, who's from Clydebank, got married to a chap called James Beggs weeks after meeting him.
There's a great story from Jerry Duffy at Sun there. It's worth pointing out that the Sun today is 144 pages in size, a full 48 pages larger than its next rival, the Daily Record. It's another great story in the Sun today by Scott Mullen, and it's about Celtic star Georgios Samaras, who's revealed that he's baffled by the Glaswegian accent after he signed, "I didn't even think it was English."
Perhaps he should apply for one of those jobs that was in the press a few weeks earlier to translate Glaswegian.
Glaswegian? Do you understand it? And sticking with football, soccer thug Marlon King was jailed for 18 months yesterday after he groped and battered a clubber across the nose.
The £35,000 a week Wigan Athletic striker has been sacked from the club after he punched the woman in the face, demanding to know, do you know who I am? I'm a millionaire. And this has not been a great week for footballers in the press, as former England under-21 star Callum Davenport was charged with assault following an incident where he was stabbed in the legs at his home.
Yeah, to put this into context, Marlon's lawyer pointed out yesterday that his 18-month sentence will see him lose up to £1 million in earnings.
On the front page of today's Scotsman, a Scottish banking institution, Lloyds, may have to close 185 of its high street sites after an EU regulatory body decided that they would have to be closed under competition rules.
Yeah, a story by Erica Askland, who used to work for Business 7, says that both Tesco and Virgin Money could be circling for the 185 high street sites that could be lined up for transfer to the new bank.
It's another sad chapter in the decline of the Scottish banking industry following the recession in RBS this year.
Though interestingly, the other day there was a story suggesting that there's more vacancies in the financial market in Edinburgh for the first time since November last year.
Moving deeper into the Scotsman, on page 6, former Minister Tony McNulty was forced to apologise in Parliament, promising to repay more than £13,000 in second home allowance, which he effectively used to subsidise his parents.
Yeah, since 2004, Mr McNulty claimed £49,931 in running costs for the property, 69% of the total £72,187 and 12 pence. But the committee have ruled they should have claimed no more than half.
The latest firm but fair decision from the bodies that are currently going over the expenses scandal.
Yeah, yesterday, Mr McNulty rejected suggestions that he had got away with it and should have been punished more severely. I'm sure the voters themselves will have their own opinions on that one. The Daily Mail today has a big picture of Bruce Forsyth, the 81-year-old TV host, on the cover. It's quite a heartwarming story on page 3, where he's revealed to have been secretly being in touch with a cancer victim for the last 3 years after she told nurses that her greatest wish was to speak to the great man himself.
A testament to the chap's character that he's been on our screens for so long, and that something like this comes out and it's a surprise. It shows a bit of depth to his character, I think.
Yeah, despite his obvious fame, he's been spending an hour a week chatting to Gloria Park, and has even gone to meet her and her husband in the past. I was relieved to get home last night to find I had a parcel delivered through the mail, which was a surprise to me with all the postal strike, but it turns out it's from UPS. And the Daily Mail today has a splash in the post-strike backlash, where it's revealed that high street firms are now turning their back on Royal Mail as industrial action picks up apace. The latest big name to reject them is Marks and Spencer's, who've confirmed that they are looking at rivals TNT, I believe it is.
TNT reporting business is up 10% during the strikes, and this is of concern to everyone as the postal surge at Christmas is not far away.
Yeah, the front page of today's Times as well has a picture, one of the few to carry a picture of the postal strike on the front in full colour, which shows a bunch of protesters outside the Springburn sorting office in Glasgow alongside the brazier, and certainly the picture himself shows that the strike's hotting up. In the Times also today on page 9 is a story about the couple who have been held hostage by pirates off Somalia. Paul Chandler has been in touch with the authorities, which brings some relief, I'm sure, to their family that him and his wife Rachel were at least alive.
When these stories surface, I'm always very surprised at the level and the frequency of contact between the British press and these pirates half the world away.
Yeah, it's curious that the press seem to be able to get right to the heart of the story, whereby we're told officially that there's no dialogue going on.
On page 1 of the Scottish Daily Express staple, a classic health story, sweeteners are silent killers. Fructose in a lot of common foods could be raising the nation's blood pressure to unhealthy levels.
Quite honestly, stories like this that raise my blood pressure. We can eat something, you can't eat something, I get sick of it.
Elsewhere in the Scottish Daily Express, the party drug GBL, which is legal, has claimed another victim this year. Stephanie Balcarras from Hamilton was found slumped over her computer after taking the drug, which is dubbed liquid ecstasy.
Yes, tributes are paid to her already, since she was very trusting. She was very much a family girl, and it's another waste of a young life.
This should shed more spotlight on the drugs policy in this country. After early this week, the government's chief drugs policy advisor claimed that the British government have made a mistake, reclassifying cannabis from C back up to Class B. Moving on to the Daily Star of Scotland, that familiar page layout here, Katie Price, X Factor, and Story Z, which today is the front page of the Record story, the paedophiles who've been jailed for life.
Yeah, Daily Star today screaming out its front page that it costs just 25 pence, pointing out that's 5 pence cheaper than the Sun. And it also says you can get today's Daily Express for the same price. Today's Daily Telegraph carries a front page story saying that the US would have sought to extradite the Lockerbie bomber Al Megrahi had they known that he was going to be freed on compassionate grounds by the Scottish Government. Elsewhere in the paper, it sticks with the American theme by saying that Barack Obama, the American president, for the first time went to the Dover Air Base to welcome home the bodies of service personnel who have been killed out there, draped in the stars and stripes. It's the first time the US president has taken part in such a ceremony. In fact, the American press was banned from taking images in case it affected the morale of the nation. There's an interesting story also in the Telegraph which kind of ties in on page 31, which is there an etiquette for wearing poppies? Also the little red labels we all wear to remember on the 11th of November. The question they're posing is it too early to start wearing the poppies? I mean, notice some of the newspapers have a poppy on the front page, the 4-leaf Scottish poppy, some have the 2-leaf English poppy, but not everyone is yet.
For the first time in a long time, I suspect the poppy perhaps having a deeper significance due to the majority of our armed forces casualties at the moment occurring in Afghanistan, where the poppy is, of course, the centre of their economy. And finally, moving on to the Herald, on page 2, a recession story which has become all too familiar. The owner of Threshers, Haddo's, Wine Rack and The Local, drinks retail giant First Quench Retailing, is going bust, and 1,000 jobs in Scotland are at risk. Yeah,
they won't be the only ones drowning in their sorrows either. I notice on page 3 of the Herald that the BBC are asking 150 senior managers in the bid to claw back £2 million for their budget.
It's a sad story in the same week that a number of countries, including the US, have reportedly climbed out of recession. And indeed, that list read out to devastating effect in Prime Minister's questions on Wednesday to Gordon Brown by David Cameron.
Yeah, on page 2 there's a story juxtapositioned right next to the jobs tale as well, saying that the Diageo staff are voting for the strike ballot over the redundancy that hangs over them at their sites in Kilmarnock and Glasgow.
Thank you very much for listening. Today is Friday the 30th of October.
Have a good weekend.